You were asked to go back in your journal and look at the double bar graph that we glued in earlier. And we said bar graphs and double bar graphs, they're easy. All you have to do is see how tall it is, and then you can figure out how many people or how many votes or how many whatever there were. Now, there's also something called a percent bar graph or a percent bar, and this may be familiar to you. So we're going to use this double bar graph, and in your journal on the next page or wherever you're going to need some space, we're going to take this double bar graph information and we're going to make a percent bar graph. So I'm going to use another piece of paper, or like I said, go to the next page in your journal. But we still need to look at this information. We're going to take it off this double bar graph. So I'm going to title this percent bar or percent bar graph. And we said before you make any kind of graph, before you make a bar graph, a line plot, or a line graph, it's always a good idea to go ahead and have your frequency table made out. So let's make one of those. According to this bar graph over here, we were interviewing people their favorite types of games. So that's what I'm going to write in my frequency table. It looks like I asked people about the game Monopoly, Trouble, Life, and Battleship. So I'm going to box this in. We're going to make our frequency table. And remember, we said frequency just means how many. So right here, I guess I should put games, game names. Then we need to know how many people voted for each game. That's frequency. And then we also said a part of this table called relative frequency, which basically just means percent. So let's get our frequency table drawn. We're going to add relative frequency to it. Now we need to go back and look at the data they collected over here in this double bar graph. Now, we just want to know how many students. We're not going to split it up and be very specific about boys and girls. So we need to look. Let's look at Monopoly. How many students voted for Monopoly? So we need to put the boy bar and the girl bar together. So it looks like there was a 4 and an 8. So we're going to say there were 12 people voted for Monopoly. What about Trouble? Now those bars don't go up to a number, but they go in the middle. So what's in between 4 and 6? 5. In between 8 and 10, 9. So what's 9 plus 5? 14. Life, add those two bars together because I want to know how many total students. 6 plus 7, 13. And then for Battleship, 10 plus 4 is 14 again. Now that's easy. Frequency just means how many, but now let's find the relative frequency or the percent. Remember, just because there was 12 people, that does not mean 12% because percent means out of 100. So first, before we can even do that, we need to find out the total number of people that participated in this survey. So we need to add all those up. So to the side, somewhere where you have room, what's 12 plus 14 plus 13 plus 14? $53? That's important. Total is 53. So I'm going to put that somewhere over here. That's important because I need that to find percent. So let's do Monopoly first. We knew there were 12 out of 53 people that voted, but we want percent, and percent means out of 100. I do not see an easy scale factor, so we're going to have to do our cross multiplying and dividing. We know 12 times 100 is 1,200. So our lonely guy is 53. 53 goes into 120 two times. 2 times 53 is 106. I'm going to let you finish out the rest and see what you get. We should have gotten about 22.6% of the people voted for Monopoly. Let's go for Trouble. We knew there were 14 out of 53 people, but percent means out of 100, so I'm going to set up my percent proportion over here. Cross multiplying, what's 100 times 14? 1,400. Remember, add your 2 zeros. Divided by my lonely guy, 53 again. How many times does 53 go into 140? Pretty sure it's just twice, because we said 2 times 53 is 106. See what else you get? Keep going to at least one decimal place. Did you get 26.4%? People voted for the game Trouble. Now let's do the game of life. We had 13 people, so we're going to say 13 out of the 53 people, but percent means over 100. Cross multiply, divide by the lonely guy, that's going to give me 1,300. Divided by my lonely guy of 53. Again, 53 goes into 130 twice. 2 times 53 is 106. Let's subtract and keep going. You'll get another one that ends up being a decimal. We should have gotten 24.5% people for life. And now the last one, Battleship, had 14 people, and up here Trouble also had 14 people, so we already found that one. And we said 14 people also meant 26.4%. We needed to find the percents because we're making a percent bar graph. So now that we found the relative frequency and it's already in our frequency table, we're just going to represent this data in a graph. And it's kind of like a bar graph. And you may see it horizontally or vertically. But let's just do the horizontal one right now. So we're going to draw our bar just like you would on a bar graph. So here's a big bar. And since it's a percent bar, we're starting with 0. And our percents always go up to 100%. Our whole bar should be filled or shaded. Because remember, when you add all your percents up together, what should it equal? 100%. So our whole bar should be shaded. Now again, since all of these did not divide evenly, we had to round off. It's not going to add perfectly to 100, but when I added it up, it got 99.9%. So that's super, super close since they didn't come out evenly. Now this is just a sketch, so I know it's not going to be perfect, but I want to get pretty close. And when I'm looking at my percents up here in my frequency table, I see a bunch of 20s and really close to 25, 24, 26. So I know that I can split up my 100, I can split up 100% into fourths, right? Like quarters. Because I say, man, I could probably make most of those be really close to 25%. So I'm going to divide my percent bar into quarters. So right down the middle, we know that's 50%. There's 25% and 75%. So this is just a sketch, but we want to be kind of close. So we divide it up into fourths, and they're all really close to each other. So they should each probably get the same amount of shaded. They're all not going to get the same amount of space, but they're going to all be really close. So let's look at Monopoly. They got 22.6%. Now, so if it only got 22.6%, does it need to shade all the way up to 25? No, but it's going to be really close. So 22.6, again, this is a sketch. It's not going to be perfect. If you had different colors, or if you wanted to maybe say, okay, Monopoly is going to be stripes, you would need to code that. So down here, I'm going to say, okay, Monopoly, that's going to be your stripes, so you know what it is. Our next game was Trouble, and it had 26%. So again, this is not perfect. So if it's 26%, it should get its whole chunk, and we're going to give it this leftover piece. So let's make Trouble, what do we want to do? Let's just totally shade in that section. So I'm going to make this shaded section that's going to represent the Trouble percentage. The next game was the Game of Life. And I don't know, polka dots maybe. Now they had 24.5%. That's super, super close to 25%. So I'm just going to go ahead, and since this is just a sketch, I'm just going to give it that whole section because 25.4, it rounds to 25%. So let's just give the rest of this fourth piece to Trouble. And now the rest of it should go to Battleship. Battleship was 26.4%. Again, that's super, super close to 25%. So since this is just a sketch, we can give that last piece to Battleship. And we can just say Battleship is the blank section. Now again, most of these are very, very close. But we can tell that, what is this? The Trouble section, the battleship sections, they should be really close to the same size, and they should be bigger than the other two pieces. If you wanted to see a vertical bar graph, I guess we could just turn our paper over like this, and it may look like that. Either way, your percent bar should be filled up all the way to 100%. You shouldn't have just an extra piece hanging off. It should be totally full. But we couldn't draw that percent bar until we made our frequency table and found the relative frequency for them all. Always, always remember, percent means out of 100.